Steve here. Today is Saturday, March 28th, 2026. For a long time, Europe felt like a quiet museum, a continent of settled stability. Well, today, that museum is building a fortress. We are watching a fundamental tectonic shift in Europe's entire strategic posture, and tonight we're going to break down exactly how they plan to pay for it.
You see, for decades, Europe reaped the economic rewards of not having to fund a massive military. That surplus, that financial benefit they called the peace dividend, is over. It's officially dead. We are in a new era now, one that is forcing a total rewrite of fiscal and defense policy across the entire continent.
All right, here's our agenda. First, we'll cover the death of that peace dividend. Then we'll get into the new 3.5% defense spending mandate. After that, we'll look at the massive rearmament fund they've built to make it happen. And finally, we'll analyze the real consequences of building this fortress on a mountain of debt.
Now, the most crucial point to understand is this. Europe is systematically abandoning its post-Cold War mindset. The entire focus is pivoted away from economic stability and towards hard, physical security. That fortress, it's being built as we speak, a direct response to a geopolitical reality they just can't ignore anymore.
And that brings us to the Hague Summit in late 2025. You really have to see this as the turning point, the moment where Europe's whole philosophy on defense spending was thrown out and rewritten from scratch. The old rules are gone.
And you need to pay close attention to the sheer scale of this change. The old NATO target of 2%, that was always treated as a ceiling, right? An aspirational goal that many members never even bothered to hit. This new 3.5% mandate, that's a floor. It is the absolute minimum requirement, and they have to meet it by 2035. That, right there, is a monumental shift in policy.
This number? 800 billion euros. That represents the very first major step. It's the record-breaking EU defense budget for 2026 alone. This isn't some forecast. This is cash on the table, right now.
So, the big question is, how are they paying for all this? It's not they're raising taxes, I can tell you that. Nope. They've engineered a completely new financial engine for this fortress, a set of specific mechanisms designed to fund this unprecedented military expansion.
And this number is the key to the whole thing. 150 billion euros. That's the initial value of what they're calling the Security Action for Europe instrument, or SAFE. This is the primary financial tool they're using to fuel the entire rearmament.
Think of the SAFE instrument as a defense-focused version of the COVID recovery funds. It's a huge, common-backed loan fund that offers cheap, long-term financing. But here's the critical detail. To get the loans, you have to buy European-made equipment. The endgame here is to build a self-reliant fortress industry, one that isn't dependent on the United States for critical systems.
And this is the rule change that makes it all possible. For years, the EU have been bound by strict rules on budget deficits. The Defense Golden Rule is a fiscal escape clause. It explicitly exempts defense-related borrowing from those limits. To put it plainly, Brussels is now willing to look the other way, opening the floodgates for debt-funded rearmament.
Which leads us to the broader economic fallout. What we are witnessing here is the birth of a genuine war economy in a modern, high-tech continent. And it's an economy that's going to be financed almost entirely by the bond markets.
Let's be very clear about the trade-off being made. The continent of Europe is making a conscious choice. It is trading its long-held, almost sacred principle of fiscal discipline for military firepower. It's a massive gamble that fundamentally redefines Europe's economic identity.
Now, to put all of this in perspective, let's just look across the Atlantic. While Europe decides to open the borrowing taps, the United States is already staring down a $39 trillion national debt. Europe is now deliberately choosing to walk down a very similar path, leveraging its own financial future for security today.
And of course, the markets are reacting. Today, the S&P 500 sits at 6,740. The leading sectors? Aerospace and defense. This is no longer a cyclical trend, it's a deep, structural shift in the market. And believe me, if you are not watching Eurobond yields right now, you are missing the real story.
So it all comes down to one crucial question. Europe is betting its entire financial future on the idea that security will ultimately deliver stability. It is a continent-wide wager, funded by debt, with consequences that are going to play out for decades to come. The question isn't whether they can build the fortress, it's whether they can afford it. Will this bet pay off? That's the story we'll be watching.